I usually talk about Doctor Who on this channel, but I'm also a huge fan of superheroes, and one of the defining superhero stories is Superman 1978, brought to the life by the charismatic Christopher Reeve. So when a documentary was announced detailing his work and tragic accident, it was on my list immediately. And I want to dedicate this video to talking about the documentary and the brilliantly talented Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve really understood Superman in a way no actor has shown before or since. He shaped childhoods with his wry smiles and cool composure, a completely peaceful, idealized character to strive towards. And though the script and direction must be complimented, it was Christopher Reeve's performance the movie hinged on, and it's what he did with the character that created a legacy. One that recent Superman adaptations have struggled to match up to in spite of technological advances and so on. There's a lot of credit that goes to his performance sensibilities, really distinguishing Superman from Clark, creating an endearing depiction of Superman that lights up imagination. In every interview I've watched, Reeve mirrors my thoughts about Superman, that he's a friend, someone who despite his powers is on our level. Superman's legacy would be missing a great deal had it not been for Chris Reeve's enthusiasm for the part, cementing Superman onto the big screen in a big, yet understated manner. Reeve gave Superman a humanity that simply wasn't seen before, beating other auditions immediately. His father didn't approve of his role as Superman, but he continued on with the role and became an icon, the definitive Superman for countless people. Christopher Reeve learned to ride horses after being cast in Anna Karenina. Despite his horse allergy, he used antihistamine regularly, learning to love horse riding. It remained a large part of his life alongside his other activities, like skiing and sports. It's clear he was a very active individual who came to love horse riding. In 1995, Christopher Reeve took part in an equestrian competition. During a jump, the horse put on the brakes and Christopher Reeve fell, damaging his spinal cord. The injury left him paralysed from the neck down, and the man who people had come to know as Superman could no longer walk. Needless to say, Christopher Reeve's life was completely transformed after what seemed a simple accident. When Reeve was filled in on the full scope of his disability, he underwent an incredibly dark period of suicidal thoughts. His own mother wanted to take him off life support, but Dana Reeve disagreed and ensured that Reeve knew that this wasn't the end for him. In spite of Reeve's suicidal thoughts, Dana reminded him that there was more for him in the future, and picked him up from a very dark place. Dana Reeve's story is very important. Not for 1 minute did she give up on her husband, remaining a reason for him to continue on with life. She married Christopher Reeve and never left his side for a second, keeping their family together in spite of tragedy. She's often a forgotten role, but this film tells her story too, because there isn't a Christopher Reeve story without Dana by his side. Robin Williams' friendship is also highlighted in the film. The two had a relationship going back to Juilliard Performance School as roommates, remaining lifelong friends, and Williams made Reeve laugh again after the accident, reminding him of happiness, continuously checking up on his welfare afterwards. Such acts are a beautiful encapsulation of the importance of connection and perseverance. And through such moments, Christopher Reeve regained a sense of purpose. Despite the fact Reeve wrestled with fate and what could have been averted, it's very possible he could have died from the accident. His heart stopped twice following the accident, but he didn't die. Reeve was in an incredibly dark place right after his accident, but he ultimately strived to continue, never letting such thoughts overcome him. He did contemplate how much he had lost in life because of what seemed a simple accident, but he was never frozen in that headspace. He tried to escape his injury his whole life finding a cure, but he did come to terms with it because of how much life still had to offer. Such hardships are simply a part of life, and every day we're alive is a gift. It's difficult when we see people we love or those who seem invincible before tragedies, but they remind us that these things can happen to anyone unpredictably. Life can be incredibly cruel, but it's how we pick ourselves up that really matters. And Reeve may have been paralysed, but he stayed strong for the years following such injury and never became someone who faded away from public consciousness. Though his accident was indeed a burden, he never let it define him as a person, living life to the fullest he could. 1 year after his accident, Reeve was invited to the Academy Awards. Despite the public spotlight, he accepted, giving a rousing speech, vocalising his thoughts on life in lieu of what he had faced. For Reeve to make himself so visible in paraplegic state was life-changing for people, and the public made their support for him clear in heaps of letters and praise, and that must have been a beautiful thing to experience. It gave way to him connecting with many disabled individuals, creating a foundation dedicated to the disabled community. Reeve became very active in fighting for disabled people through his foundation. He dedicated himself to a cure and was engaged in promoting change and hope. Reeve was an environmental activist pre-accident, and his accident simply focused his activism on disability, allowing him to really impact that community. Reeve was particularly interested in the potential of stem cells, hoping to find an outright cure to paralysis. I'm not saying that a cure for such disabilities is necessarily perfect. There are plenty of physically impaired individuals who live healthy and happy lives, and there are certain moral issues regarding such cures involving stem cells and testing. Reeve delved into controversial territory by approaching this subject matter, as a cure implies the idea being disabled is wrong, and there certainly was a backlash to this. The documentary gets into this controversy and him allowing the use of his image in a CGI walking scene for an advert, which also feels wrong. However, the pursuit of a cure separated the foundation. Dana was more interested in quality of life over a cure, improvements which can be felt to this day through the foundation. So though the documentary is a hopeful one, it doesn't shy away from Reeve's flaws. The film delves into his separation with his first partner and even his parents' friction. The tale is a sad one, but it also portrays the moments of joy that makes life worth living, between family and friends, through sickness and health. Reeve made the most of life with his family even though he couldn't do the same activities and was seen as more vulnerable. He didn't hide or necessarily settle down, acting in Rear Window and Smallville and directing despite his disability. I think Christopher Reeve really conveyed how important it is to never give up in spite of what life throws at you, because there's always something worth living for. There's always joy to be found when things seem hopeless. Reeve remained a public presence, inspiring audiences in new ways. In fact, not long before his death, Reeve regained limited movement, nerves confined new pathways, and close to his death, Reeve did gain some abilities in his fingers, wrist, and legs, which is crazy to even think about. However, not long later, Reeve died on the 9th of October 2004, following a coma. However, his children all seem to have grown into mature individuals, and it's thanks to them that this film was made. It's a very vulnerable thing to conduct these interviews and bring up this emotional baggage, but it's thanks to the Reeve family that we're allowed to see this side to his story and their life. Put simply, it's a very respectful documentary that doesn't shy away from certain darkness, but mostly it highlights hope. The film shows the human experience at its core through highs and lows, and ultimately, the importance of connection. It's the people in life who keep us going no matter what we are facing, and this film is very much about that. Reeve's determination is immortalized by this documentary, and indeed his autobiography for people to discover. Hopefully, it can help people to come to terms with whatever they're facing, and try to look at things the way Reeve did, and journey on as he did. In many ways, Christopher Reeve remains a timeless beacon of hope to audiences, both personally and professionally. I highly recommend watching this documentary. Superman has a huge place in my heart alongside Christopher Reeve, and its release is the perfect timing as we approach a new era for Superman. If you liked this video, please subscribe and consider joining Patreon. Links are in the description below. I'd like to give a special thank you to Starfleet Sohail, who supports me on Patreon. You can find him at Starfleet Sohail on YouTube and Twitter. However, most importantly, thank you for watching.